Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here with another game discussion. Today I wanted to talk about introducing people to video games for the first time. You know, people who have really barely ever scratched the surface of what games can offer, and, you know, trying to help them find those games that they enjoy, because in my mind, just about everybody enjoys video games. It's just a matter of what games, you know, will they actually enjoy playing? I mean, there are people who have gone their entire lives, never even touched video games, and to me, that's kind of a sad thing. You know, it's not. You could look at it like, well, some people like different things. It's like, yeah, but have you ever tried it? It's like, you know, to me, it's as crazy at this point. If you haven't played any games ever in your life, it's as crazy as saying you've never seen a movie. I mean, there's such entertainment and interactive entertainment, if you will, that can be found in video games, not to mention just all of the other glorious elements that games manage to bring, as the art, the characters, the worlds. There's just so much good about video games. And even on the smaller scale level, things like Hearthstone that you're seeing here. So my girlfriend, not really someone who plays games. You know, she grew up, they had like a GameCube at her house, she played Animal Crossing. A lot of people played Animal Crossing. I mean, it's that one sort of core game that when you ask somebody if they play games and they say no, they might say, yeah, but I played Animal Crossing at one point, you know? So, she had that going for her. You know, Animal Crossing was definitely there. And recently, over the holidays, I bought her a 3DS and I got her a copy of Animal Crossing New Leaf and figured, you know, let's get her back into the mood of playing video games. And then, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I introduced her to Hearthstone. And no idea how this was going to go. You know, I've tried lots of different things, Minecraft, and there's a lot of different issues with a lot of those other experiences. So I said, okay, let's break it down and pick something that's as simple as possible, but is still very much themed and features a lot of, you know, atmospheric and design elements that are from something that is considered a pretty hardcore type of experience, World of Warcraft, you know, Heroes of Hearthstone. So I gave it to her, and at first she was, you know, pretty confused, but I let her be. I wasn't going to walk her through with it, because it's a card game, and I feel like card games, like Hearthstone especially, they're very good at teaching you how to play as you play. So, jump forward 2 weeks later, and she's finally on her own account, which she wasn't happy about, because she actually got my Paladin and my Mage and a couple of my other fighters, my other characters, up to like level 13, which is farther than I've ever gotten any of them. But anyways, she's on her own account, she's leveling up her deck now, and we pretty much play 3 or 4 matches every single night. You know, we'll hop online, and she'll play on her iPad and I'll play on my computer, and we'll go at it. So this was actually just one match, and ended up being one hell of a comeback. We're both low level. I picked the priest because she hadn't really leveled up her paladin yet, so we went at it, both level 1, level 2, around there, and this ends up being a ridiculous comeback. I mean, I was at like 24, she was down 8, and she ends up taking me, but that's kind of the nature of the paladin deck. Anyways, the point is, she gets the game, and she actually really genuinely enjoys it, and so that's really the big thing right there, because when you talk about introducing people into games, there's so many things you have to consider and you have to think about for a game to be opening to them, for it to be something that draws them in. Now, as myself, you know, for myself, it's easy to be really detached from this, because I'm so far past the whole, like, I like certain types of games things. I pretty much play everything. There's very few genres that I don't appreciate. Like, endless runners, I think, are the only one that I don't really care for. Which doesn't really count, you know. I play RTSs and turn-based strategies and you know, everything. You know, that's just the point in my life that I'm in. I will put my hands on anything if it's a game and it looks even the slightest bit interesting, and give it a go. Now, for someone like her, she hasn't had that experience, that lifelong experience with all of these different types of games. And this goes for many people, you know. They don't understand how a turn-based strategy works. They don't understand how an adventure game like Minecraft even works. And when you start talking about first-person and third-person games that require precision, movement, and controls, for someone like myself and many of us, it's second nature. We understand that the right stick is sort of your face and the left stick is sort of your legs. And we just put that together automatically and we go. But for someone like her who's never really played games like that, it's a whole other learning curve. And it detracts from the experience. She can't enjoy the building aspect and the farming and all the cool elements that Minecraft has, because she's struggling with the controls the entire time. So something like that has to just pretty much be put on the side. You just can't You can't focus on a game like that. I tried, believe me, I've tried a lot of different things. You have to keep it simple with the control scheme to start. It has to be something they can pick up and they can play without that initial barrier, so they can then start to enjoy the experience. And then you have the sort of train of thought that you have to have for certain games. The next game that I tried to get her to try was A Link to the Past, or I'm sorry, A Link Between Worlds, the second to last most recent Zelda game on the 3DS. And it was another issue for her. She doesn't have that mindset of like exploration and, you know, where to go. For an example, one of the early missions in that game requires you to go to a graveyard and then find a missing girl. Well, she's at the graveyard, she kills the slimes, and for her it's like, okay, what's point B now? You know, she's expecting something more direct. She hasn't had it hard-coded into her brain that maybe I should start pushing around these giant statues and perhaps there'll be a passage under one of them. For me, it was like just a go-to thing. I was like, oh, try pushing this, and there's a staircase. You know, that is a mindset that for many of us comes naturally because we've been playing these sorts of games since we were kids. Even, you know, whether they be pen and paper, it doesn't matter. You understand that sort of fantasy experience, that element of exploration and that thought process that is required to solve those sorts of puzzles. She doesn't have that. It's never been built in her brain. So again, the game is very difficult for her. Just navigating on a map that doesn't show, you know, here's this point, here's that point, is going to be challenging. I mean, it's challenging for a lot of us. Many games these days don't require you to actually physically use a map. Everything is pointed out in the map. You know, in something like A Link Between Worlds, there are no actual titles on the map. It's all just visual based. So if you don't remember what the top of your house looked like on the map, then you're not going to find it. That's, again, a very big challenge for her. So when you're trying to get people to enjoy, you know, games, you can't think so much about what games you want them to enjoy as you need to think about what games could it be possible for them to enjoy. And again, you need to focus on those two barriers. The first one being the physical one with the controls. You know, can this control scheme, is this something they can learn briefly? Is it something that's going to be, you know, a wall that's going to prevent them from even getting to the meat of the game? You really genuinely have to think about that, and that was why I knocked out things like Minecraft. And as much as I know she would enjoy a lot of these adventure type games and, you know, fantasy games, because she likes these, you know, sort of characters, she likes creating characters, she likes the idea of like farming and, you know, those sorts of things. Those are interesting to her, but there are so many games that just the control scheme is just too deep. You know, you start talking about role-playing games like Skyrim and Dragon Age. As much as she might enjoy something like that, she can't do the controls. It would just take too long. And I'm not saying that at some point she might get there, but I think you have to start off at a much more basic level. And Hearthstone and, you know, Animal Crossing, they definitely hit that because they're easy games. You know, Animal Crossing is a very easy game when it comes to the controls. The rest of it is just, you know, management. You're playing as the mayor, managing the town, and she totally digs that stuff. I mean, she's all elitist about it. When I hop on and play my character in a town, the first thing she says is like, you know, she's listening to what I'm doing. Oh, did you get the real painting? Is it the fake painting? So, you know, she totally can get into those things. And the same thing with Hearthstone. I mean, she ends up being pretty vengeful about it and taking it pretty seriously. And I think that having that competitive edge naturally when you introduce someone to games can go one of two ways. They can become extremely frustrated because they don't like to lose, or they can have that sort of competitive side that says, no, I want to get better at this because I don't like to lose. I mean, when people say that they're naturally competitive, I think those are the two sides. You know, some people claim to be naturally competitive, but they don't want to go above and beyond to become good, you know, to actually be victorious in something. They just ignore it and they say, no, I'll just stick to what I'm good at. She's not like that. She's not like that at all, so that's definitely a benefit for her when it comes to the introduction of new games. She wants to be good at them. She wants to understand them. It's just sometimes there's this level of frustration that she can't get past, you know, like I said, with the controls with something like Minecraft. So that's a really big topic for me because as someone who has games as a huge part of my life, you know, it's hard to not want to introduce her to things. And I think some of the other really great ones, and a lot of people will concur on this, you know, the Telltale series, again, these are very much, you know, story-driven games that don't require a lot of, you know, real-time control strategy. You don't need to be focusing on actually controlling the game. It's very simplistic, and, you know, it just helps people understand that games are more than first-person shooters, because a lot of people look at games and that's what they understand, especially people who grew up in a setting where only the younger people that they know play games. You know, they have a neighbor who's like 7 who plays games, or he's 15, he plays Call of Duty, you know? They don't understand that there's this whole other layer of these horror games, these adventure games, these puzzle games, these games that are, you know, really testing your the power of your brain, your ability to solve and break down problems. And then there's just games that are all about creativity. So that's really, for me, the most important thing when trying to introduce somebody into games, is just to expose them. So, you know, it may not be the fact that I want her to become, you know, great at Minecraft and understand how it works, but I want her to see the game and understand what is possible there. And maybe that's enough to drive her competitive edge to say, no, I want to understand, I want to learn how to control this game because I want to do those things. I want to plant a farm and I want to build a house and build a castle. I love the idea of that, but I need to get past this barrier. So I think also showing them what the game will give you, what the reward is beyond that initial barrier, that physical barrier of the control scheme, or maybe even just that thought processing barrier, you know, something like Zelda has, where you really have to be able to, you know, understand how to solve a puzzle in a dungeon and how those things work. If you show them what's beyond that, the sense of exploration and just wonderment and the new characters and all of the wonderful bits and pieces of the world that they can take in, that sometimes can be enough to drive them past those barriers, to help them be more willing to try and take those challenges on. And you know, before it, you know it, who knows? Maybe one day they'll be playing League of Legends. A good friend of mine, that's exactly how she was. I mean, she grew up around games, but never in a very very diehard manner with things like first-person shooters. And now you have it, like, you know, how many years later, and her husband play Gears of War together, they play Halo together, you know, we all play League of Legends together. I mean, it's just, she's on a completely different flip side of things. And that's the other thing, is that you can't speak to somebody who's being introduced to games and start talking about things like that. You can't say, man, you know, I wish one day you'll be playing League of Legends. No, don't do that. If there is a bigger and better way to put down somebody's confidence, that is it. You know, again, work with what you think they can work with. Show them as many things as possible and see what grabs their attention. It's very easy to tell when someone doesn't like something. When it comes to video games, you know, they won't be taking it seriously, and you could tell when they're having an immediate struggle. So focus on a lot of those different things when you try and introduce people to games. I think that it's important to try and do that in the same way that I think it's important to introduce people to different types of foods and, you know, different types of film and different types of reading. You know, explore what the world has to offer. Why not give it all a go? I mean, you only have one life, you might as well try as many things as possible, and I think the same thing goes for video games. If you guys have any stories you'd like to share with me about teaching new players on how to play games or introducing people to video games for the first time, you know, feel free to share them. I definitely would like to hear your side of it, you know, maybe personal experience trying to get someone into it. Like I said, for me, it's just something I've been raised on. It wasn't so much me showing my mom how to play games as it was my mom showing me how to play games as I grew up. So it's a very prominent thing in my family. I mean, just as a final example, I woke up this morning, my mom was late for work because she was too busy playing Zelda on her 3DS. That's just her. That's video games to her. So you can see where I sort of get it from, but feel free to share those stories in the comment section below. You know, anything you have to say about this subject, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And you guys get to watch, yeah, my girlfriend, who has only been playing Hearthstone for 2 weeks, kick my ass at it. I'll see you in the next one.